Welcome back to our study called Restarting the Earth, and we're looking at Genesis 6 through 14 today. And this little part we call the Lord tests. Let's start with Noah, and he's looking for a sign. So Noah and his family have made it into day number 224 of the flood. Did you notice that Noah was told that in 7 days the flood would begin? But what about the end? Did God tell him when the flood would end, when he'd be able to get off the ark? We don't see it anywhere. When would the end come, God? We don't find that recorded. He doesn't know how long he's going to have to be on the ark. And so by day 264, Noah decides to look for a sign of the end of the flood, which makes sense. You're waiting 264 days. I would be looking for a sign too, I think. So what does he do? He opens the window of the ark and releases a raven. The bird would go back and forth and then return. Since ravens are scavengers, there might have still been food for the raven that the sea creatures hadn't already obtained, the different corpses that were floating on the water. So the raven probably had food. He could go out, find land, eat, grab some food and come back to the ark, but didn't have anywhere really to land and to nest and to stay. So that's what the raven did. Now on day 271, Noah decides to let a dove fly, which probably would give a more accurate sign if the waters had gone, because the dove would look for a tree to land in. Well, the first dove returned with no sign of dry land. 7 days later, Noah sends out another dove, but this one returns with a sign, an olive branch. I read somewhere that an olive tree can sprout underwater, and so this makes sense. The olive tree is growing already, even though there still might be a lot of water on the ground. There's still enough, it's still close to the land, it's still close enough to the surface that these plants would start sprouting and coming up out of the water, if not already on dry land. So 7 days later, Noah sends out another dove that doesn't return, apparently finding enough dry land to live on. Did you notice the pattern of 7 days here? It's kind of interesting. Noah was keeping track of the weeks. He knows what day it is. That's why even when the story comes down to Moses, probably through Abraham and to his ancestors or his descendants, and then gets passed on to Moses, the day of the flood and these weeks here have been recorded. So Noah's keeping track of these weeks. And some have suggested that Noah sent out the doves on the Sabbath days looking for a sign of rest, which is an interesting thing to talk about. It doesn't really say, but he's doing it every 7 days, and so I don't know, could have been. Reading this text, you wonder, why didn't God tell Noah and his family when they'd be able to leave? Why didn't he tell them that? Why not? Why doesn't he tell us things sometimes? Well, oftentimes it's a test of faith. Who built the ark? Well, Noah did, right? Noah and maybe some other people, maybe his family, but Noah did, ultimately. So this could have been an opportunity for Noah to trust in himself. After having built the ark by faith, it says in Hebrews 11:7, Satan could have seized the opportunity and tempted Noah to trust in his own craftsmanship. Noah could have thought he saved the human race. Hey, I built this ark. I got on it. I got all these animals on it. So, hey, I'm the one that did this. I mean, you know how the mind works. You know how Satan works. But here I think God wants to increase Noah's faith by testing it, like he says, like gold or like silver. Noah doesn't know when the flood will end and when he will leave the ark. He must trust God that his promises are true. And so God keeps Noah in the dark. God not revealing every future event in your life doesn't mean he doesn't love you or doesn't care. That's not what he didn't mean that for Noah, obviously, and doesn't mean that for us either. He has given you his promises, written in his word. He gave Noah promises. These are there for you to trust in. We're to walk by faith, not by sight, just like Noah. If we know the upcoming events of our lives, we'll be tempted to trust in ourselves instead of God, because we think we're making it happen, or we think our destiny is in our control, but really it's not. God doesn't tell us the events of the future because he loves us and wants us to grow in our faith. If we knew everything, our faith would not grow. And so he is about the job of growing our faith, making our faith, establishing our faith. And that takes his purposes and plans and not revealing those to us all the time.